All right.
Tēnā koutou katoa, nā me inui kia koutou e hui mai nei. I know I've already done a live today, but this is too important to wait for popo. So and I know it's dinner time, so a lot of yous will be having kai. I usually have a song as an intro to allow people to come on to my lives, but instead I'm going to let my friend Lou Hutichinson introduce herself, and we are going to talk about the current slaying of Kaoss Price in New Plymouth. I have brought this topic up about the police shooting, the fatal shooting of this young Maori boy. And he is only a boy. He's someone's mokopuna, he's someone's tama, he's someone's brother, he's someone's cousin. And we can't forget that. But I'm going to let Lou introduce herself, and then I'm going to ask Lou about what she knows has been happening in New Plymouth, my hometown. And so I am concerned because I am aware of other police shootings in Taranaki. I'll ask you a question after you introduce yourself, Lou, but I really want to know what's going on.
Yeah. Kia ora, Donna. As you've said, my name's Lou Hutichinson. I guess the last sort of 3 years, a few people would have known I've worked closely alongside the leader of the Waikato Manga Mob Kingdom, Sani Whatipaitoa. And I've done a lot of work, I guess, bridging the gap between that community, the kingdom, and whoever we could reach out to or try to build relationship with. So it was more, I guess, like a public relations role, and I guess working in other spaces, just advocating for our whānau and communities that are just not heard or not, they're invisible. So and I just continue to do that work. And I guess even over the recent weeks, I've been working with whānau who have been affected by police raids and the use of guns on our tamariki and on our babies. So then when I heard about this shooting on Sunday morning, it's just a constant now that and just to see what's rolled out over the last sort of 48, 72 hours is just so concerning to me.
Yeah, well, the stats alone speak for themselves. There's certainly something going on, and I believe there needs to be a royal commission into what's happening with the police. We are 11 times likely, if you're Māori or Brown, Māori or Pacifica, 11 times more likely to be shot and maimed or killed than your Pakia counterparts. Now that if that doesn't worry people, then we're not living in a civilized society. I call it police execution when they target our people, and you'll hear all the justifications of the shooting from the police. Like for example, Lou, just the way that the police has handled this whole process took them 2 days to come out with a statement. And what they're trying to get is the public sympathy for the police officer, that the police officer, that young Kaoss had rammed the police car. But you've heard other stories. So you've got the public and police story that's gone across all our mainstream media. What have you heard in your neck of the woods, Lou?
I guess from doing my own research and trying to gather my own intel and connections to people along the West Coast, we've heard different stories that he didn't ram. It was the police officer that rammed first. And then when you look at the Stuff article that came out, I'm not sure if it was yesterday's piece, and you see the police car on the truck when all the cars were transported away from the scene. You can see that both sides of the police vehicle have dents or in them. So I know the police did release a video in one of their, when she did the first police conference, and it showed that he'd done a U-turn and then rammed the car. But I'm like, well, how then did the dents come onto the other side of the car? So that sort of marries up with some of the comments were that the police actually, that officer rammed him first. So there's all these different comments coming through, different intel that's coming through. So it puts everything that the police are saying into question, that he had no weapon at all, that I've heard again today that he was trying to get into his car. At first, he ran from his car. He tried to get into a car that was behind him. That car was locked. So he tried the one behind that, couldn't get into that. And then I'm trying, from there he may have run back to his car and he was shot. And now the police are saying they're going to, obviously they're going to do their own investigation. It's like we can't, and especially with the pieces that Guy on Espiner put out recently on his in-depth investigative research into the police and the shootings in New Zealand, we can't even trust the police to do investigations. They set up, it was proven that they'd set up officers before they'd even been interviewed. And they've admitted that in the last 2 days that these officers hadn't even given statements yet.
Yeah. Well, it took, the red flag for me is how long it took for the police to come out with a statement. Why do you think it took them too long or so long to come out with a police statement? Because what I'm hearing is that witnesses have been threatened.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think I've noticed that today, that some people now no longer want to talk. So whether they're being intimidated by police or told, you're not to comment. I also understand that they're also very close to this whānau and to their friend that they've lost, and you have to consider the privacy and all that. But, this is now a matter of public interest, and this is, the 40th, is it what? The 40th.
Yeah, the 40th. So the stats show that it's the 40th killing since 1990. Right.
Yep.
And 35 of them have been classed as justifiable killings, and 5 of them, including this one, are still under investigation. So that tells us something about the IPCA. So there's a massive review going on in regards to the occupation in Wellington, nearly 2,000 complaints, and I'm aware of some horrendous stories. Can the public have faith in the IPCA that they're going to do their job? Because apparently they only investigate about 3% of the actual complaints that come through. The police are judge and jury over themselves. That's a red flag as well in itself. What do you say about that, Lou?
I don't have any faith in the IPCA, to be honest, with the track record on these things. We know exactly, even the behaviour of the last 48 hours. It's like, I think that was what was concerning to me within the first 24 hours, is why there was so much silence. So that was a big red herring for me. It's like, there's something not right. There's something. Normally they'd come out and say that there was a gun presented or anything, but there wasn't. This man didn't have a weapon. From what I understand, it's a dog handler that is allegedly the officer. Why would you not tactically release your dog if you're a dog handler? If you've got concerns, why would you shoot a person allegedly in the back? These all.
That's right. It's the media and the police's spin on this case, I guess, which is worrying, because they make out that this cop and I've heard description about this cop, that he's an innocent cop, and that basically their lives were threatened. But the intel that I'm receiving and that you're receiving is actually the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. If it is this police officer, this isn't the first time this has happened. There's also links to a gang member that died back in 2018 after a police chase. I've seen comments on Arthur Taylor's page. people reaching out to him because they're aware of his experience and his knowledge in the justice area and fighting for justice. And these people know that they're concerned about the behaviour of this cop, that this isn't something that's isolated. I've also heard more information today about this cop, that he harasses gang members along the West Coast. He provokes them, he intimidates them, he swears at them. So that, you know, this is the type of, and some of the reporting that Guyon did, it was brought out in one of the people he'd interviewed. This is the culture of the police.
What the police tend to forget when they behave like this is one, is that the public trust them, and two, that the public have rights. And it seems that if you're a poor brown young male, or Māori or Pacifica male, that you don't seem to have the same rights as anyone else, and that this particular cop, if you can describe more about him, but this particular cop has had a number of complaints against him, including that death that he was involved in. And so what I've received, because I come from Taranaki, and people that have made contact with me, is that they believe that this cop is a rogue cop.
Yeah, he's a redneck. Yeah, he's definitely a redneck. He's definitely a dog handler. That he's actually a redhead. Those are some of the information.
Redneck with red head. Yeah. And people are putting comments up even about his name on social media. My concern is especially the Māori members of Parliament. What are they doing to ensure that our people aren't being executed by the police? Because that's what it's feeling like, hey, that it's what do you think? I mean, to me, I'm concerned about my own nephews, my own mokopuna, who are young teenagers, young men, only a few years younger than this young man that died. I mean, I'm concerned that there are rogue cops out there that are trigger happy. The data is telling us that. I mean, the data says that New Zealand cops are killing 11 times more than the UK police, who have the 13 times more the population than we do. I mean, surely the politicians, and especially the Māori politicians, need to be concerned about that. Surely the Māori leaders within our community need to be concerned about these stats, and enough is enough as far as I'm concerned. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, we'd think you of course would think that they'd be concerned, but at the end of the day, from the reports we've received, that this young man had gang affiliations, may have been a gang member. Well, this is a political hot potato. The politicians aren't going to go near it. And we've known the last 2 to 3 years with the likes of Simon Bridges, Mark Mitchell, Simeon Brown, the whole Strike Force Raptor plan. It was, you know, the whole line of, we're going to disrupt and harass gangs every day. And this is the divide that's glaringly obvious in the nation when you look at the media that's been coming out the last 48 hours on this young man, and people have already written him off. They've already said that, you know, some of the most terrible things about a young man, and that you shouldn't be saying that these things when he's lost his life. Like, you know, he didn't need to be shot and killed. He could have been, if there was any concerns about him and the harm he could cause anyone or to the community, it could have been handled a different way. And I've seen young people make the comment about that. But he was blatantly, like you've clearly said, this is like execution style policing like we see in the United States. So,
and absolutely, and that's why I put in the description. You know, is this the 1992 race riots in LA when Rodney King was attacked by 4 police officers, and they were let off by the judiciary, so they got away with it scot-free. And so what happened was we had this massive riot. We've lost since 1990 40 men, majority of them young, and the majority of them are Maori. Now that has to surely rattle even the most any human being, surely, because you're right. We all have, to me, it's police execution without trial, and then justify it later.
Yeah, definitely. It's hugely concerning. But and where are the Māori politicians? I've said that to a few people today already. Where are these people that said that they were going to be here for their people? Prior to becoming a politician, this is the perfect time, but it's too politically risky for them because you lose votes if you want to talk about gang members. Look at what's happened with the Labor government funding a drug rehabilitation program in the Hawke's Bay. It's just like you can't do anything positive or constructive. You can't do anything different. Yet we want to continue to do the same as we've done for the last 30 or 40 years and get the same disgusting results. And the statistics that our Māori are incarcerated, like the stats you've shared today, they're shot like at 11 times.
We're the most incarcerated people in the world, and no one seems to be concerned about it. We've got the justice industrial complex happening here, the criminal justice industrial complex, where billions of dollars get fed through the system, whether it's via the police, via the courts, or via corrections. Billions of dollars a year. I think it's around $7 billion a year. So that's an industrial complex, right? In regards to the money that's pumped into it. And I've explained to others that I see it like a taniwha, where that taniwha has to be fed. Well, guess who feeds that taniwha? It's our people. We also know that colonisation has had a huge impact on Māori. And the reasons behind what's happening in the criminal justice system. Poverty. We sort out poverty and housing and employment. We'll sort out a lot of Māori issues. We start transferring the resources to the communities where they're going to make a difference. We'll start seeing a change in society. But this is a real black mark against the police as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, exactly. And they've just gone wanting. I mean, for me, it was when I haven't actually looked at what the Commissioner Sandra Venable's role is, but just to have her fronting as a woman, it was like to me, it was a strategy. We've always seen Andrew Costa fronting, and just to have a woman fronting and to see some of the language that they've been using in their media releases about the trauma and, obviously but, I feel like that's guilt coming through. I think they know that there's something seriously gone wrong in this operation, and they're going to be scrambling.
Well, do you think, I mean, you've mentioned before, but the statistic shows that the IPCA is not up to it. Even with Guy and Espina's investigation, that the IPCA admit they don't have the capacity or the resources. Well, after the occupation, there's another 2,000 complaints there, and everyone that's later complained who have asked for their complaint to be heard, they send out a generic email saying that it's going to be caught in the actual review. And then you've got this serious shooting that's just like lancing a boil, and a boil that really needs to be lanced, and all the paru come out for the public to see the real story. Because to me, this cop is painted as being an innocent cop. Like you said, there's a whole strategy, the whole propaganda about how it's presented to the public to get public buy-in and public sympathy. But we know that there are always two sides to a story, and this young man, Kaoss Price, his voice has to be heard from the grave. His whānau needs justice in this situation.
Oh, they do. And I mean, and there's also the questions around, for me, the dog handlers. We experience the same attitudes, egos with the dog handlers here in the Waikato. They blatantly, they provoke, they harass our men just for simply driving their car. It's not illegal to be a gang member in this nation. Not every, that saying that Paito says not every gang member is a criminal, or not every criminal is a gang member. These men are racially profiled every day of their lives. These dog handlers, they have this power about them that it's almost like they're untouchable. I'm not sure if there's specific things. I've just been reading some information about the work with police dogs, and I think, but we need to become more educated and more aware of how policing works in New Zealand, and it needs to change. But we've had members that get the same sort of thing. It sounds like with this dog handler down in the Taranaki, they're provoking them. That one dog handler said here, my job is to get rid of every one of you one by one.
Yeah, well, that's what whānau are saying in New Plymouth, that they're racist, that the dog handlers are racist, and that the way they treat young Māori men versus the way they treat Pakia are two different strategies. And again, I've said in past lives that Māori are the canary in the mine. So what's happening to Māori, we know there's going to be opportunities for that to happen to the masses, but we are definitely the canary in the mine. And if we're happy with the police the way that they are, I mean, at the occupation, I'll take it back to the occupation and the riots in the occupation. I mean, they look like Gestapo, and they had, knuckle busters as their gloves, and they were assaulting kaumatua. And so that in itself, I mean, I was there at that occupation. I wasn't there on that particular day. I was there a week before, and what the media and the police portrayed what was happening in their occupation is not what I experienced. I experienced actually, it felt like a festival. But again, even now there are Pakia that have experienced the brutality of the police, and they now know what it feels like to be brown. They actually now know what it feels like, and I've had people say that to me. We now know what it feels like to be Māori. But that's my point. Māori are the canary in the mine. What happens to us will eventually spread out to the rest of the community, and we shouldn't tolerate and we shouldn't normalise police shooting. And that's my concern about the way that the media portrays all of this with the police. They get the story together and they come across as the innocent party. I mean, the fact that they said that the police need counselling. What about the whānau of the shot person? This young man, Kaoss Price. What about them? I'm sure they need bloody counselling as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They're the forgotten people in these types of cases, just like the work I've been doing with survivors or those left behind after police raids when their loved ones have been arrested in raids, and everyone wants to go, oh, well, if they want to be in that community. But at the end of the day, these are people that are innocent. Our children are innocent when they're caught up in drug raids, and the police do nothing other than actually terrorise these children. They point semi-automatics at these young children, march them out onto the streets and treat them like criminals. Our children are innocent, and then we wonder why our children grow up with the attitudes they do against the police. It's like, and then still you provide them no follow-up care. These are children that go to school and they've got PTSD. Grandmothers and mothers that can't sleep. They haven't slept for months on end because of the trauma that they've suffered. Like, the police still don't get it. This is how many more.
Well, it's the system, mate. When the system allows the police to behave in the manner that they are behaving in, when there's no political oversight of the police, well, they're no different to any other gang as far as I'm concerned. I must admit there are good police officers, and I've met good police officers, but they're not the ones reaching the headlines. They're not the ones that are shooting and killing our people.
No, that's right.
So I don't know, just to I guess to wrap up, and thank you so much, because I know you do a lot of work in this space, and I know a lot of it's voluntary. A lot of our work we do is voluntary. And half the time we seem to be doing the work that the politicians who get paid to do this work to bring these issues to the forefront, to highlight what's happening, especially in Māori communities, coming from a Māori perspective, what's happening in our communities. If we want to see any changes, then we need to bring this issue right to the political forefront. And I want to thank you so much, Lou, for sharing your knowledge, your expertise in this space, as well as I know you're a good researcher, because we've done a bit of mahi together as well, and you're a good researcher, but also sharing some of the intel and speaking on behalf of the whānau and those whānau connected to this young man. He was 22 years old. It breaks my heart. Yes, he was a bit of a haututu, but does that give the police the right to shoot to kill? Does that give the police the right to execute? Because what I've heard is that he was running from the police. Can you just confirm whether or not that's the same story you heard?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard that as well, that he was running. And again, like the likes of Moana Jackson's report, 22 years ago, I've seen comment about that, and the recommendations, or the, we've just lost that man who had so much wisdom, and he researched. And the police, how can this be happening a few weeks after we've lost that man, when he's already shared with the nation the problems why all this happens, and
well, unless there's political will, or we have a change in government, and to bring these issues to the fore, to ensure that there's some type of royal commission. And I think Māori members of parliament, no matter what party you belong to, should be pushing for this, because it's our young men that are getting, execution, slash murder. I mean, that's how it feels. It's murder by license.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is the scary part of considering what's coming in the elections for 2023, and knowing, the type of rhetoric that goes on in the election campaign around law and order, and that American type policing. And I think we're at a stage in New Zealand, I actually felt worried today. I'm really worried about, where this is all leading, and the road we're going down. And you're right, unless we stand up, unless Māori come together and really stand up for their whānau that have been taken this way, I'm really concerned where we're heading. This is dangerous territory. We don't want to become a little America.
Well, I think we're quite a way down the track of becoming little America. What's concerning me is the militarization of our police force, the lack of political oversight, and the politicians say there's a difference between operational and policy and politics. But when you've got statistics like our police kill 11 times more than UK police, and yet their population is 13 times more, and Māori and Pacifica, majority Māori, are the ones at the end of the fatal shootings, then either Māori treated like worse than dogs, worse than animals, worse than and it literally feels like we're on a conveyor belt and ready to go to the slaughter. I mean, I know that's dramatic. I know that may be over dramatizing it, but how else can you get the point across if you don't? Men are losing their lives, are getting shot by the police, and the fact that every single police officer has been found to be justified in their shooting concerns me. I know there was a survey done a number of years ago where 80% of the complaints went to the police complaints authority, because now we have the independent police conduct authority. 80% of the complaints that went to the police complaints authority were declined. Only 20% was upheld. Now, how do they justify that? That means that these types of organisations that have oversight over, like, for example, the police, are not doing their job. They are not accountable back to the public. It's like they're protecting police careers and allowing racism to fester and come to the fore, because that's what people have been telling me from Taranaki. Whānau have been saying is that there are major issues of racism within the Taranaki police force.
Yeah. Oh, it's
and we've experienced some of that here in the Waikato as well. So it's not only just in Taranaki, but in this particular time, we're only talking about what's happened to this young man, 22 years old. Ka aroha.
Yeah. Oh, it's despicable. And I really hope that us as people can keep the pressure on the police for this. I hope the truth comes out. I've had some comments come through that, the truth will come out. So there's people determined already in this case for the truth to be known. They know there's something terribly wrong and this young man shouldn't have died. So
do you think some of the witnesses have been pressured to they've been silenced? What's your perspective? Because we, apart from other whānau that wasn't there and they're just sharing their whakaaro based on what they know, but do you think the actual witnesses are being silenced?
I wouldn't put it past the police. We know how they operate, and we're talking about, this is a huge story right now across the media, and the police don't want this to be. They've got to try and maintain their look in society, that they're the upright, police department. But the best thing they could do would actually be to be honest, with the history that's already gone down. But it's going to be very interesting to watch how this all unravels. But, if you've got redneck cops, dirty cops, racist cops, they need to be gone. You need them gone.
They need to be weaned out of the police force. I know that there are a number of Māori police officers. So there are increased Māori police officers that are on the front line. But again, you can brown up a police force, but it doesn't change the culture of the police force.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think could change the culture of the police force? Have you got any ideas, Lou?
Well, their Māori strategy should be implemented, just as we've struggled over the last 2 to 3 years, is just to actually have conversation with police. They refuse to communicate. So how can you have, we talk about community policing. This young man, whatever the issues were in his life, there would have been a strategy. There could have been an intervention, but they chose, that police officer or the officers involved that night chose not to follow that. Theirs was the let's go hard and fast. They were driven by that power and that ego that was talked about in some of Guy on Espina's pieces. There has to be a change in the culture of policing, and in this whole them and us, this whole gang thing that's been driven politically at the moment is hugely harmful for our nation. Like, gang members aren't the only drug dealers in our nation. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and to discriminate the gangs we're going down a really dangerous path. So I think the more that we have mature and wise policemen, and I actually feel for Costa. I think he's got a very tough job, and he's trying to bring cultural change within a department that's renowned for its institutional racism, for its policing that's probably never been seen before in this nation. He's up against it, and the political narrative of like if the soft on crime. It's not about being soft. It's about taking a different, turning a different way. Or it's the whole police strategy is the turn of the tide. We can't continue to do, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. We have to have leaders that are prepared to stand up and take us down a path that's never gone before. And I think Costa's got his head around that. He's a very experienced, wise man that understands actually what's important is people first. But he's up against a political machine, the likes of National Enact, whose their votes are all about law and order. It's about let's lock away people. It's punitive, but it doesn't work. Just like Bill English said, prisons are a moral and fiscal failure. So we're at a time in history, really, and policing in New Zealand where it has to change. So
I think there's a lot of things that have to change, and we certainly need to look at our politicians currently sitting in Parliament at the moment, because during the rollout there's lots of issues around mandates and stuff like that, and like I say, with the occupation in Wellington, I met doctors, nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists. I'm talking people that have spent a lot of time building their careers, and they lost everything. A lot of them lost whānau, lost homes, lost careers, and they were protesting against that. And to have all they asked for was a politician, any politician out of the 120, to come down and talk to them. Yes, Matt King come down, and now he's set up his own party. But we had Uncle Winnie come in, who's not even a sitting member of Parliament, and he did go through and he did listen. But for me, the eye opener was the police reaction and their strategy. And these were ordinary people. Some of them have never ever protested before in their lives ever. So it's interesting times, Lou, and thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I really, really appreciate that, and I hope that whānau that are watching appreciate just what you've shared with us and my insights. Again, it's our perspective, and it's what we're hearing, and it's people reaching out to both you and I in regards to this very, very serious matter. Ngā mihi ki a koe e te rangatira. Kia ora mai koutou. So whānau, that's the wrap up for this interview. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch up with you soon with another live Ka kite anō. Kia ora rā.